The fate of Google's business is now in the hands of Judge Amit Mehta as closing arguments concluded in the landmark trial on Friday. Now, the US Department of Justice and plaintiff states made their last arguments on Google's anti-competitive conduct in the general search market. And on Friday, they focused on its allegedly illegal conduct in search advertising. Now, Google was also under fire separately for failing to retain chat messages that the US government believes could have been relevant to this case. But this 10-week trial, presided over by US District Judge Amit Mehta, featured testimony from the likes of Microsoft chief Satya Nadella and Google CEO Sundar Pichai, the defense's star witness. Basically, the government is trying to show that Google locked up key distribution channels for the general search engine market so that would-be rivals could not grow into significant threats. It says it did so through contracts with phone manufacturers and browser companies to be the exclusive default search engine. If the judge agrees that Google successfully foreclosed competition in that market, he can consider the government's arguments about the search advertising market as evidence of anti-competitive conduct. Joining us for further clarity on what's at stake, Jaspreet Bindra, founder Tech Whisperer Ltd, UK at the moment. Thank you so much, Mr. Bindra, for joining us on the World 24/7. Now, the US Justice Department argues that Google has abused a monopoly over the search business, stifling competitors and limiting innovation, something the company vehemently denies. But do you believe Google blocked off healthy competition, or is it an unprecedented decision to punish a company for winning on merit?
You know, history repeats itself. The last time this happened was in 1998-2000, when Microsoft was accused of very much the same allegations. And we all know how that went. Microsoft was considered guilty to an extent. The company wasn't broken up, but it hobbled innovation, and Microsoft took a long time getting out of it. I think something similar is happening to Google. My view is that it's been a long time coming. I think the problem has been that the way monopoly is defined in the US system is that if it hurts the consumer. Now, Google has always claimed that the product is free for the consumer, and their claim also lies on substitutability, that they don't consumers don't necessarily need to go to Google. They can go to Bing instead, they can go to Amazon instead. Now they're even saying that they can go to TikTok instead or Facebook instead, and those are also search platforms, and therefore trying to say that we don't have a absolute dominance in search. However, I think the Justice Department clearly believes that there's an abuse of power. It actually has said that the future of the internet will depend on this trial, and having a search share of greater than 90% in most markets, paying $20 billion to Apple to have search default on the iPhone, having ad practices which sometimes are coercive, as we've seen even in India. I think there is definitely a case for monopoly here.
Right. So while Google argues that it simply makes good search products, on the flip side, do you think the rise of artificial intelligence technology has increased competition?
Well, it's an interesting thing. In fact, one of Google's arguments, which I find a little amusing, is that we have a monopoly, still we innovate and make our search product better. If we had a monopoly, we just had to jack up prices. We really didn't have to innovate. Having said that, I think the rise of generative AI is a big, almost an existentialist threat to the traditional search engine. Many of us know that generative AI or large language models was actually created in the Google Labs in 2017.
Right.
But Google didn't do much about it, probably, I speculate, probably fearing that it would hurt their current business. And so as this technology is taken up by Microsoft, by multiple other players, Perplexity.ai, which is threatening to be a large language model-based search engine, Google itself bringing in generative AI into a lot of their products, definitely we're going to see a new threat. And lastly, but very importantly, if not anything else, I do believe that it will at least force Google to go back to its roots and create search for consumers rather than for advertisers, the way it has become right now.
Well, the findings in the case will then have massive regulatory implications for not just the world's biggest search engine, but also fellow tech giants like Amazon, Apple, and Meta, right?
Absolutely. This is just the beginning of the story. So, Lina Khan at the Department of Justice has not only targeted Google, but all the other companies that you name. And each one of them is going to get into regulatory survey. And therefore, it clearly, as the department itself says, is going to determine the future of the internet. What has happened with the internet is that a few companies now dominate it. And that was not the original vision of the internet. The original vision of the internet was a democratized internet where even the small guy, the long tail, would have as much as a say as everyone else. But that's not really what has happened.
Right.
The internet has been captured in a sense by very big companies, and it has benefited us also. But on the other hand, I think it's about time that we have competition in all of these different companies that you mentioned.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Bindra, as always, for joining us on The World 24/7.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we look forward to what happens in the trial.